get sure. I gotta move it this way a little bit.
Okay. That's good. Doing that there. I think it looks good. I'll get my eye. Got a few people on. We can give it a few minutes. I'll get my eye on Facebook. I'll get my eye YouTube. Welcome today. Welcome to today's communion.
This is YouTube.
Yes, that's YouTube, and this one's Facebook. Autanongtan Lisa.
No text found.
You slow going this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just cancel.
Like they're like, we don't want communion. No communion today.
Everybody's sleeping in today.
Autanongtan Anitra.
We can always break bread.
All right. Well, the numbers is going up a little at a time. So on that, so we got half the people watching it sitting in the room with us anyway. So that's why. That's probably why we can't get the numbers to go up. Everybody's here. Autanongtan Cheryl. All right, well, good morning or good afternoon. Goodness gracious, it's 1 o'clock. So dua for joining us for our regularly scheduled communion today. Autanongtan Kurti. We're going to get started. We're going to do our opening prayer, and then we will segue into the roll call and find out where you guys are joining us from. So join us this morning in our prayer by saying, Amatuim Panatir, Sauek Tuim Panatir, Audu Auma, Kedi Paheru. And the translation is give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netaru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in the moments of crises, in the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is, and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'at, Ma'akaru, 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 Ma'akaru. Okay. Okay, everybody. Dua for joining us. Where are you all joining us from? It's time for the roll call. Let's see who we got on the line and where you guys are chiming in from. I think I saw Phoenix, Arizona already joining us from Facebook. And I think I saw the DMV also joining us on Facebook. So who else do we got? Where are y'all coming from? Philadelphia is in the house on YouTube. Cleveland on YouTube. St. Lucia is on Facebook. That's what's up. That's what's up. You ain't invite nobody else to the beach. Hold up. Do I not say? New Rochelle is in the house on YouTube. Hamden, Connecticut. Do I not say? Newark, New Jersey. Brick City's in the building. Give thanks. Yes. Spartanburg, South Carolina is joining us on Facebook. Yonkers, New York is on YouTube. Columbus, Ohio on Facebook. Do I not say? Houston, Texas is on Facebook. Do I not say? Do I not say? Very, very grateful that you could join us today, Anu Karu, in Houston, Texas. Bronx, New York is on YouTube. We got South Jersey on Facebook joining us. Delaware is in the house. Yes. Miami is in the building. Chicago is in the building. Philly, more Philly representation. Brooklyn is in the house. More Philly representation. Yes. Sacramento, California is in the building. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is here. Long Island is here. Yes. Give thanks. Give thanks. London, the United Kingdom, all the way from London. Arkansas is here. Nice. Nice. I think, is that the first time we see Arkansas? Might be.
Maybe once.
Maybe once before. Okay. All right. Well, it's good to see you again, Maya. Do I not say? Okay. All right. Well, first off, I want to just start by sending energy to our brothers and sisters in Texas right now who have been going through it with the cold front that they've experienced there that is unprecedented for the state of Texas. It's something that they did not anticipate, something that the state appears to be very unprepared for, that the residents there have been very unprepared for. It's just not an area that typically gets that kind of snow, that kind of cold. And that weather experience has put a significant drain on their resources and it's made it very difficult. I know that people have transitioned to the West because of the cold, because of the loss of electricity, because of the challenges with food supply. So I want to first and foremost send energy to any of our supporters and friends and followers who are in Texas right now. Of course, we send our energy. We hope that you all are warm and healthy and fed, that your children and your family are warm and healthy and fed. And definitely, we open our chat, the Righteous and Respectable chat. If there are resources, if anyone knows of direct resources that can be sent to people in Texas, like ways we can get, to the people who are in need, please feel free to put those resources in the chat so that we in the temple and that others here in our chat can support those who are in need and not leave our brothers and sisters untaken care of and unsupported at this time. One of the things that disturbed me the most about what I read was about the electric situation and how some folks are going to come out of this situation with like electricity bills of like $10,000 and things like that, because the prices for electricity have spiked so severely, and that the electric companies there are planning to charge folks for that electricity and for the surge and for the challenges. So instead of like the companies eating those expensive and absorbing those expensive, they're going to actually cause people's bills to go up. And I got to admit, I'm super disturbed by that because that seems incredibly unfair. From what I know about the situation in Texas, it feels like and seems like this difficulty is happening because of the greedy capitalist system that we're a part of, and the poor decision making by politicians. So I think that we should call upon Ma'at in this instance to make sure justice is served, that nobody is held responsible for those high electricity bills unjustly or unfairly for a situation that was, in all intents and purposes, a natural disaster that was beyond anyone's capacity to control or predict. And that it's not the residents' fault that they're in this situation. They should definitely not be held accountable for $10,000 electricity bills and things like that. So call upon Ma'at. I call upon Ma'at. I ask all of you to call upon Ma'at to make sure justice is served in these situations, to make sure that these people are not held accountable for things that are outside their control, and that we seek to ensure that the politicians that we elect and we put into place, that they do the work on our behalf, and if they don't, we hold them accountable. We hold their feet to the fire. That's our job and our responsibility. So do our netter. That I just wanted to say that before we kind of get started. I wanted to, just let them know that we are thinking about them. And again, if there's any thing that needs to be done, please please put information in the chat, and we'll check it out. Okay. It's interesting because, like, even thinking about that, I really have been reflecting on the weather and on the snow, really a lot recently. We've had quite a bit of snow here in the Northeast as well, and snowstorms, blizzards, etc. is not unheard of in our area. But last winter was really very mild, right? And this winter has been like the opposite. It's like snowing like every other day, and like a lot of snow too, like 20 inches, 7 inches, 5 inches, another 10 inches. Like, hold up a second. Like, we barely have enough time to get out from under the snow before there's more snow. And then to find out other parts of the country are also experiencing these really stark.
Snowing in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like these really crazy cold fronts, like it's 4 degrees in parts of Texas and stuff like that. And like it's snowing like crazy in Michigan, I heard. And to see that happening around the world, to me, is a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things, right? And like what we've been going through in this pandemic, what we've been going through over the last 12 months, really, like in this quarantine, has been almost a year. The cosmos is going through too. The earth is going through too. And I'm looking at this snow and I'm experiencing this as a cleansing, as like a cosmic and a planetary cleansing that we are all being charged to endure at this time, not just for the sake of us, but for the sake of the planet and for the sake of the cosmos. I think about what snow does and how it is that the snow really does come in and blankets everything. It blankets everything, and as things begin to warm up, snow begins to melt. It begins to wash away. Snow is a cleansing power. Snow is related to water, so it's about cleansing. It's about washing things away. It's about purifying. It's about rinsing and releasing. But snow is also white. Snow is bright. It reflects the light. It reminds us about how it is that we're supposed to seek light and seek inspiration and seek uplifting vibrational energy instead of succumbing to darkness or chaos, or succumbing to the challenge that even when things are happening, we're still supposed to embrace light, and we're still supposed to fight and strive to embrace light. This snow and the cold weather is encouraging us to stay indoors, to retreat indoors. And if you think about it, we're very fortunate because we have a lot of things that make us comfortable when we're indoors. Like we have heat and we have Netflix and like we get to be inside and be real comfortable. But like the truth of the matter is that when you go into hibernation, it's not so much about finding comforts. It's really supposed to be about finding yourself. It's an opportunity for you to go internal. So you're not just going in the house, you're going within. How is it that we are seeking the light within ourselves? How is it that we're taking this opportunity to remind ourselves that our truest inspiration, our truest light, our truest power really exists within ourselves, and how we're not, just because the world is not open, that doesn't mean that we can't find those things. That doesn't mean that we don't have those things. That doesn't mean that we cannot activate those things or embrace those things right here within ourselves. Cold weather also discourages activity. And it's really interesting because a lot of people talk about the winter time as though this is like a time for you to be dormant and you don't do anything, and you take it down and you be really quiet. And I want to just acknowledge that dormant or internal does not mean inactive, right? Or it really shouldn't. I want to just discourage this idea that just because we're not necessarily making big moves doesn't mean that we're not taking actions, right? That's two different things. Like, you may not be making major actions or taking major moves, but that doesn't mean that this is not a good time for action to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What the winter season really encourages is an opportunity to plan.
That's right.
It's an opportunity for us to prepare. It's an opportunity for us to think about, like, when I get out of this cold, when I get out of the snow, when I get out of this season, and when the spring comes and it's time for me to take action, what am I actually going to do?
That's right.
What am I actually going to initiate in my life? What am I actually ready to make happen? What if we're not taking the winter season and the winter time to open the way for our success, then when the spring comes, we're not even ready to spring forward. We're not actually ready to plant seeds. We're not actually ready to tend to our crops. We're not actually ready to actually move forward or take the action that we need to take. So this is the perfect time for us to be rejuvenating. As much as I'm not a big winter person. I don't love the cold weather so much, but I love what the winter season represents to us. The opportunity for us to reinvigorate ourselves, to reinvigorate our plans, to reinvigorate our intentions, to do our research, to consider, this is what I was working on last year. Why didn't this work for me? What do I need to change about my tactics? What do I need to do differently? How do I need to reinvest? How do I need to recalibrate? How do I need to prepare so that this year I can be successful in a way that I wasn't last year? That's what this time is for. And a really, really important part of that is how it is that we ground ourselves and we stabilize ourselves so that we are rooted firmly in our cultural foundation, in our spiritual foundation, in our intentions. In that way, when we do spring forward, we have the power and the weight of our groundedness to support us through the whole process. Mm-hmm. We go back to the reading of this year for 2021. One of the Nataru of this year is Geb. And Geb is calling on us this year to shore up our foundation, right? To reinforce our roots, to reinforce our foundation, to make sure that we're not just taking leaps of faith and we don't have the safety net to catch us, to make sure that we're not just jumping out there to make plans when we haven't done the research or looked into the background information to make sure that the plans are sound. We're not just trusting people without checking the Yelp reviews. We're not just putting the money into this account without making sure the account is secure. You understand what I'm saying? It's all about how it is that we secure ourselves. How are we investing in our security? How are we investing in our foundation? So as we think about what it means to reinforce our structure, in advance of the big actions and the big changes that we're going to make when the spring season comes and when it becomes warmer and when it's time for us to take those major actions, a really important question we could ask ourselves is, how will we contribute to the making of a better world? Because here we are, the snow is cleansing, the cold is causing us to go within, we are learning, we are growing, and we are inspiring ourselves. And then from there, what are we going to take from that to make sure that the world we build from this moment forward is better than the world that we had before? Mm-hmm. If the world is purifying itself, we don't want to just come back out and create the same chaos and nonsense that we already had. Mm-hmm. We want to come out and improve conditions for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, right? So how is it that each of us is prepared to contribute to the making of a better world? I want to go to I want to go to a passage written by one of our ancestors, Amenemope. It is on page 59 of Selections from the Hosea. And it says, "Now the unrestrained man or woman in the temple is like a tree grown in unfertile ground. Its leaves wither quickly, and its unripe fruit falls to the earth. It reaches its end in the lumber yard, or it is floated far from its place, and its burial cloth becomes a flame of fire. But the self-mastered man or woman sets him or herself apart. He or she is like a tree grown in fertile ground. It grows green and doubles its yield of fruit. It has its place in the eyes of its owner. Its fruit is sweet, its shade is pleasant, and its end is reached in the garden." I'm going to come back to some of the specifics of that quote, but I want to start by first acknowledging that this quote just is creating a contrast between unrestrained and self-mastered. And I love that because so often when we think about restraints, we often contrast restriction or restraint to freedom. And when you phrase it in that way, when you say like, I want to be free, I don't want to have restrictions, or like restrictions versus freedom, like freedom naturally is always going to sound like the better option, right? Like everybody wants freedom, and therefore in that context, nobody wants restriction, right? And the challenge with that is that our freedom can sometimes be our demise. Our freedom can sometimes be our downfall. Let's frame this another way, because one of the challenges is that restriction, there's two forms of restriction, right? There's a restriction that is self-imposed, and then there is a restriction that is externally imposed upon you. And most of the time, what we are fighting against is we don't want to have restrictions imposed on us externally from other people, right? Like you come home and you tell your child, it's time to go to your bed. I don't want to go to bed, right? Your kids throw a temper tantrum. You know, you go to work and your boss is like, no, you can't have a flexible schedule. I need you to be here at 9 a.m. sharp. And if you show up at 9:05, I'm going to write you up. And your ego revolts to that. It rebels to that. Why can't I just show up at 9:05? What difference does it make? I still get my work done. I'm still a good employee. Your ego responds to that. So typically speaking, what we respond negatively to is the idea of restriction that comes from an external source. The challenge with that, we talked about the ego in the past, and we talked about how the ego is meant to protect you from things that are going to harm you, right? The truth of the matter is that not all external restrictions are meant to harm you, right? Some of them are. Let's be very clear. I'm clear about like hashtag enslavement. That's a problem. But when your boss tells you, like, in order for these machines to operate and function the way that they should, I need you to be here. I need you not to be drunk. I need you to be focused. I need you understand what I'm saying? I need you not to be on your cell phone. Like, this restriction is not meant to be harmful to you. Yeah. This restriction is meant to keep you employed. Yeah. This restriction is meant to keep other people from getting hurt while you're on the job. This restriction is meant to keep things flowing quickly so people don't have to do overtime or do unnecessary work or come in to pick up your slack because you've fallen short. This restriction is not meant to harm you. We're having an ego response because we don't like it. That doesn't necessarily mean this restriction is bad, right? And so going back to that lesson that we did a few months ago on the ego, are we able to take a step back and pull our ego out of that and demonstrate the difference between the external restriction that's meant to harm us and the external restriction that's meant to help us? The truth of the matter is that sometimes we need the external restriction until we're capable of imposing the internal restrictions. We need the external restriction until we're able of creating the life that doesn't require the external restrictions. If you don't want to have a boss tell you what to do, you're going to have to own your own business. But that requires its own level of restrictions and rule following and self-mastery. And so until you develop and have the discipline and the self-mastery that you need to be a boss, then you got to be an employee. And that is part of how it is that you cultivate the readiness to be a boss, right? This
And what do you do if you're a boss and you hire employees who was acting like you?
exactly, right? Would you want to hire employees who aren't willing to accept the external restrictions that you put on them, who don't want to show up on time, who don't want to work for their shift, who want to change the prices on your product without discussing it with you, give out discounts to their friends? Is that the kind of employee that you want working in your business?
Yeah.
Right? So again, we have the ego response when somebody's employing the restriction on us. And then when you get to be a boss, you start to realize this restriction is necessary in order to have the healthy functioning of this system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so let's go back then to internal restrictions, because again, as I mentioned, I feel like it's sort of like a growth process. So you think about, it's very easy for us to think about this when we in the terms of children, and not all of us are children, and so we'll say to ourselves, well, do I need to have restrictions placed on me by other people if I'm an adult? And the answer is yes, because just because you're an adult doesn't mean you aren't still learning, growing, and maturing in a particular situation. And as you learn and grow and mature in that situation, then the other person maybe doesn't have to restrict you, because you learn how to restrict and master yourself over time. Right? If I am a person and I'm coming into your business for the very first time, I don't know how your business works. I don't know what you want. I don't know the best things about your product. You do. So I have to learn from you. I have to submit myself to you. I have to follow your rules. I have to follow your direction until I get to the place where I can operate and move independently, if that ever becomes an option. And again, if I decide at some point or another that the rules is something I'm not willing to follow, I got to find me another space to occupy. I got to find, I can't come into your space and your business and call the shots.
Then you're creating disorder.
Because then you're creating and contributing to isfet, to chaos, to disorder. Absolutely. So the journey is that we have to accept external restrictions, and then we begin to develop the capacity to discipline and restrict ourselves. And that's a choice. It's intentional, right? It's intentional. Like, none of us have to get up in the morning. You don't have to, you could wake up. All of us have to wake up if we want to stay alive on this plane. But, you don't have to wake up in the morning and do anything. You don't have to show up to work. You don't have to. But also, then you don't have, where you're going to live, where you're going to eat. You know what I mean? We could all choose to make life real difficult for ourselves. We could all choose. You know what I mean? We could all choose. It all comes down to choice. And I think what I'm trying to say here is that each of us have these really big visions about who we're meant to be in the world, right? These really big ideas about who we're meant to be, what we're meant to do, what our divine purpose is, and what we're meant to contribute. So you can't have a big idea about who you're meant to be and you don't choose to actualize it, because now you're in dissonance with yourself. It's not a conflict between you and anyone else. You have this vision of being successful. You have a vision of owning a business. You have a vision of buying a home. You have a vision of providing for your family. You have a vision of protecting your mate. You have a vision for your life. You have a vision of this bright light and this legacy that you're supposed to leave on the world. So how do you choose to live in intention in a way that allows you to actualize that? You don't have to get up in the morning, but if you don't get up in the morning, then you probably can't produce the way that you need to. You can't feed your children the way that you need to. You understand what I'm saying? You can't accomplish the way that you need to in order to bring that vision to life. Right? You can watch reality TV for 23 hours a day if you want to, but then you're probably not going to write the book you want to write. You're probably not going to be able to take the classes you want to take. You're probably not going to learn that skill set that you need to learn. You're probably not going to be able to start your business if you're watching reality TV. You understand what I'm saying? It's all about the choice that you have to make for yourself. Do you want to live yourself into who you're meant to be or not? It's no one else's responsibility, and it's no one stopping you. It all comes down to your choice. So going all the way back to the quote, our ancestor Amenemope makes a distinction between the unrestrained man and the self-mastered man. The self-mastered man is the man or person, the person who has embraced his or her purpose in this world, who has established who it is that he or she wants to be, who is clear about his or her vision for this life, and who does not allow anything else to deter from that process, from that journey, and from that vision. That is what it means to be self-mastered. It means I'm not letting you take me off my square. This is my foundation that I've built for myself, that holds me secure and that keeps me stable. And this foundation is going to allow me to make my dreams come true. The self-mastered person is the one who says that my dreams are more important than my whims. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Because freedom and unrestriction can allow us to indulge in all of our whims all of the time. But freedom and unrestriction does not allow us to make our dreams come true. So a choice has to be made. An intention has to be set. Are we going to be unrestricted? Are we going to be free? Are we going to do what we want, when we want, where we want, how we want, not let anyone question it, not let anyone stop us, not be accountable to anyone, not be accountable to anything? Or are we going to create the life that we want for ourselves? Are we going to bring our vision to fruition? Are we going to have the things that we want? And are we going to embrace the restrictions, the structure, and the disciplines that we need to embrace in order to make sure, to make certain that victory is going to happen? That's the question. That's the question that quote asks us. That's the question that Geb is asking us this year. What restrictions, what discipline, what intentions are you willing to set and stick to in order to make possible your wildest reality? So let's go back to the quote. What happens to the unrestrained person? The unrestrained person, according to our ancestor Amenemope, the unrestrained person becomes the unrestrained person ends up being used. If you are not empowering yourself, you then become a tool for other people to use you. It says so right here in its quote. He says, the tree that is grown in unfertile ground reaches its end in the lumber yard or is floated far from its place. So what is that saying? That's saying that because you was a tree that's in unfertile ground and you're not producing no fruit, we cut you down. We made you into a ship. We took you to the lumber yard. We're going to build houses out of you. We're going to use you for our fire. We're going to use you for our houses. We're going to use you for our ships. We are going to use you for our purposes because you did not define or actualize your own purpose. That's the warning that our ancestor gives us about living an unrestrained and undisciplined existence. Is that if we don't define who we are and what our purpose is for being, someone else will define our purpose for us. Someone else will find a reason for us, and they will manipulate and move us in the direction of how they need us to go or want us to go. But the self-mastered person plants themselves intentionally in their purpose, roots themselves intentionally, and not only do they bear fruit, not only do their intentions come to life, not only do their plans come to harvest, but they end up with more than they ever thought they would have. Their yield doubles in fruit. and it has its place in the eyes of its owner. That, it's interesting because people often, people who are unrestrained often look at disciplined folks and they see our lives and they're like, your life looks so magical, you just get everything you want. Like, well, I'm blessed and highly favored. Right? Like the Christians say, like, his eye is on the sparrow, right? And I know he watches me. Okay? Right? Like, I don't have to. It's another thing that I was telling some of my students the other day. Those of us who live intentionally don't need magic. When you live intentionally, you don't need magic. And what I mean by that is, when we don't live intentionally and stuff happens to us all chaotically, bam, 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 then you constantly pleading, please, God, can you help me with this thing? Please, can you come save me from myself? Oh my God, this thing I'm unprepared for, this other challenge that I'm not ready for. And you're constantly, what candles can I burn? What incense can I use? What ritual can I do? What kind of spiritual bath can I take? You're constantly looking for the magical solution to your chaotic existence. When all you really need to do is live intentionally, live on purpose, live in purpose, right? And then you will have a place in the eye of its owner, of your creator. Your fruit will be sweet, your shade will be pleasant, and your end will be reached in the garden. Your end will be reached surrounded by the things the life that you created for yourself. You've planted yourself in this garden. You've created for yourself this beautiful existence, this beautiful environment, this beautiful surrounding, and you will be able to enjoy that and survive that and thrive in that because you've invested and rooted and been disciplined and self-mastered through the course of your existence. That's what our ancestor tells us. Our ancestor is telling us that living a self-mastered existence will benefit us in the long run. And quite frankly, I'm going to go so far as say it benefits us in the short run. Because while it might be nice to stay up till 4 a.m. watching Hulu and playing around on Instagram, if you wake up in the morning and you don't have the energy for your projects, and you don't have the energy to play with your children, and you don't have the energy to build your business, and you don't have the attention span to build your website, and you understand what I'm saying? Because you sacrificed those things to the distraction. You sacrificed those things to your wins. I think that's an important way to see it too, right? It's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice of your time. We all have a set amount of time every day. So what do you sacrifice your time to? Do you sacrifice your time and your energy to the Netru and to your divine purpose, to your ancestors? We can't just feed our spirit guides and our ancestors with flowers and libations. What about our attention? What about our energy? What about our intention? What about our life force? How do we actually give our life force to the fulfillment of our sacred purpose as an offering to our ancestors and our spirit guides? Or are we giving our life force as an offering to Instagram? So that's a really essential thing I want us to think about as we kind of close out. We're in this process now. In the next couple of weeks, we're closing out this winter season and we're transitioning into the spring season. So we've got a few more weeks left for us to go within, for us to find our inner light, our inner inspiration. What is the thing that makes us feel powerful, that makes us tick, that makes us want to get up in the morning? And how do we redirect our life force and our energy into that? What discipline, what structure, what restrictions do we need to put into our lives right now so that we can start to craft the life that we want? It may not happen overnight. Nothing that you create, if you plant a seed for a tree today, it's not going to bear you fruit tomorrow. That's not how it works. But if you tend to it and you water it and you take care of it and you nurture it, then you will get a harvest. So discipline and structure requires time, and it requires our commitment. And anything worth having requires time and requires our commitment. Having our wildest dreams, living ourselves into our purpose, fulfilling the promise of our ancestors requires time and requires and deserves our commitment, right? So think about how it is that we can be committed over the next couple of weeks to creating the plan, to refining the plan, and to building out the steps that we need to take to start to live ourselves into our higher reality, start to detach ourselves from the so-called freedom that's actually holding us back and stopping us from being as productive and powerful as we could be, and start embracing the self-mastery and the discipline that really is going to be the foundation to propel us into the next phase of our evolution and our existence. That's what it means for us to spring ahead. We have to have a strong base under us, or else when we spring ahead, we springing ahead into nothing. You springing ahead, you have no foundation, you have no base, you have no direction, you have nowhere to go, you have nothing to build. So we can't wait till things get warmer and we start feeling better about the world. Like, you can't wait until things get warmer and we're like, oh, now I want to do something. Like, now is the time to make the plans for what you're going to do. Now is the time to start setting the intentions, refining the intentions, and committing to the discipline that it takes to make those things happen. So I really hope that you all feel inspired by that right now. That is I know sort of a short message, a short lesson for today, but that is the message that the Neteru wanted you all to have today. A reminder, especially from the Netergeb, that structure is key to our success as individuals and as a people. Respect for structure and imposing structure on ourselves, and respecting when other people have structure imposed on their businesses, on their ideas, on their plans, on their families, and things like that. Respecting each other's structures, and having a structure that we ask other people to respect. Structure is such a necessary aspect. And it's something that we really want to continue to cultivate a sense of respect and reverence for. So dua neter, dua for joining us today.
Drop the mic in there.
Dua. All right, so dua, you at Tatiana. All right, so we appreciate all of y'all time and y'all energy. And I want to thank you guys in advance for the reciprocity that you show us in your donations to the temple and to the work that we do. You can share donations with us by Cash App, which is $ Temple of Anu. You can also share donations on PayPal through our email address, templeofanu@gmail.com. We appreciate that energy and reciprocity. It does allow us to continue to invest in our mission and our vision. And so, again, we just appreciate that energy that you all send us in reciprocity. We will be back here in 2 weeks for our regularly scheduled communion. We will be dual streaming as usual on Facebook and on YouTube live at 1 p.m. on, what is that, Sunday, March 6th? Yes? I think that's the day. Sunday, March 6th. We'll be back here for our next regularly scheduled communion. Sunday, March 7th. Thank you. Sunday, March 7th, we'll be back here for our next communion. So we look forward to seeing you all then. Okay? Dua, everyone. Shoni Matzah.
Shoni Matzah.